Are you wondering if the housing market is going to crash in 2022? Then stick around and find out what the housing market is doing. I hope you're having a great holiday season and you're preparing for the New Year's celebrations. Well, I have some bad news for you. The housing market's not crashing, and it will not. And today I'm going to start going over some of the things with you about the market, what they're doing right now, and over the next year to help you better prepare as both a buyer and a seller. Hey y'all, I'm Eric Hudson, and I'm located in lovely Las Vegas, Nevada, the epicenter of the last crash and the mess that we're in right now with the rising housing prices. If you haven't figured it out by now, we are in the largest housing boom in American history. So let's start talking about forbearance. Let's address this bear in the room. The first thing, you may think that the housing market is overheated and it's about to drop because of all those people who took forbearance. Well, this month alone, 125,000 people have exited forbearance. That's down 12% from last month. There are now only 890,000 homes still in forbearance, which represents 1.7% of all loans. Right now, there are 53 million home loans out there. You know what? 220 are expected to expire next month. And right now, about half are expecting to exit forbearance. Amazingly, 20.4% of people in forbearance, for some odd reason, made their full mortgage payments. They entered the forbearance, was approved, and yet they made all of their mortgage payments without missing one. You know what's even more amazing? During that same period, 7% of people who entered forbearance somehow paid off their entire loan. Even if the rest of them put their homes on the market tomorrow, what's that going to mean? It's not even going to make a dent in the 5.5 million homes that we are currently behind. So you can get that thought out of your mind. Next, are we in a housing bubble? Well, let's look at the last housing bubble that started around 2005. Well, 2021 completely blew that out of the water with 19.9% growth. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you, some parts of the country grew even more than that. Here in Las Vegas, our numbers closely matched that with 17.8%. We began this year with single-family homes selling around $345,000 at the median and $425,000 at the average. We ended this year, now we don't really know where we're in because I still have to get the statistics for the end of the month, but when we started this month, we were at a median price of $420,000 and an average price of over $500,000. Now let's start with defining what a crash is. A crash is when the housing market declines by 20% or more. A correction is 10 to 15%. So even if the market were to crash, a lot of people will still be ahead. Now, if you look back, the furthest statistics I can look back is January of 2017, which makes it close to 5 years now. The median price of a single family home was $275,000. So if the housing market were to crash, the median house would then be worth $336,000, which would mean a person who's owned their home for 5 years would still be $62,000 ahead in a crash. So I'm sure they'd still feel like a load of bricks landed on them, but it's better to be ahead. But let's be honest, most people are going to sit around and think about what they could have had instead of they do have $62,000 in their pockets. That 2000 to 2008 time frame was a completely different market. People were getting loans by just being able to breathe. That's not the case anymore. You really have to qualify for a loan now, not just fog up a mirror. One reason they were so lax back then is they thought there was an endless supply of buyers, and the buyers just kept paying the prices until everything ran out. They had no money. Fly-by-night lenders just kept handing out cash over and over again. Well, that's not happening anymore. You can't have a crash unless you have a surplus in homes. And the only way we can have a surplus in homes is for builders to build us out of this crisis. And right now, they can't build fast enough. As a matter of fact, things are so bad. I was looking for townhomes for one young lady. I called up one new development. They're like, nope, we're sold out. Call up another one. It's like, oh, okay, so here's what's going on. Our prices start at X. That's where you can start your bid at. I'm like, your bid? No, all of our homes are bid now. You have to compete against everyone else, and whoever bids the highest gets it. That is the market and the reality we're living in right now. So what about these big players? What are they saying right now? Well, Zillow has recently revised their estimates in the last few days, and they now believe the housing market will continue to grow throughout the year. Although they believe the market will peak and then start slowing down by plateauing, it's still going to grow. They're estimating a growth of 14.3% next year. And they believe this is driven by continually tight markets. And even that big fire sale they had when they got out of the home buying business didn't affect the market in any way whatsoever. Now, not everyone believes the Zillow numbers. So if you look, Fannie Mae is predicting 7.9% increase, Freddie Mac 7%, Redfin 3%, Realtor.com 2.9%, CoreLogic 2.5%. And meanwhile, the Mortgage Bankers Association, they're forecasting a 2.5% decline. I find that hard to believe, but I'm going to let that stand with what they say. Now, Redfin has reported in 400 markets, housing inventories are at historic lows. Next year, they're predicting to be about 6.5 million home sales, which oddly enough is a 6.5% increase from 2021. Yeah, 6.5. Okay, so Fannie Mae, this is where it's really bad news, is expecting mortgage rates to jump to 3.4%, while the Mortgage Bankers Association are actually predicting 4% interest rates next year. The Federal Reserve now expects the inflation rate to drop to 2.6% by the end of next year. The Federal Reserve will taper their bond purchases, if you haven't heard, which is going to slightly increase mortgage rates, possibly. They're also going to raise the Fed funds rate 3 times next year. Now, this doesn't directly affect mortgages, but it causes other shifts in the market, which puts people into the 10-year bond, which does affect mortgage rates. So right now, interest rates should stay low for the first 2 quarters, which is good. That should get us through the spring quarter at least, and then slowly start rising and ending up at one of those 2 figures or lower or higher or whatever by the end of the year. One of the reasons the Fed is doing this is one of their core missions is to keep inflation in check. And they want to keep inflation nominally under 3%. As you know, prices of everything are going up right now. So with everyone complaining, you're kind of leading to the problem of rising interest rates for mortgages. So what's driving this crazy market? Well, there are a number of factors, including historically low interest rates, huge demands from buyers driven by such things as the pandemic. A lot of them got to stay home. So now they're going like, well, hey, this really doesn't work for me. I need to get a bigger home, or I need a home with an office because I'm tired of sitting in the spare bedroom or something like that. Or they had issues with their kids and everything else. So they started looking. So couple that with the historically low interest rates and that housing shortage where we're 5.5 million homes behind, ended up with a perfect storm that led to the mess that we're in and that will continue through 2022. It also led to the bidding wars that we're continuing to have and will continue to have at least through the first half of the year also. And talking about bidding wars, I have buyers who have bought early in this year who are now $80,000 ahead in their houses. Now, people who sat on the fence talking about the market was going to crash throughout the year, They've lost $80,000 of their net worth. 80,000 they could tap in a home equity loan to do other things or handle an emergency. That's gone for them now. Another factor that's driving this, millennials. In 2022, millennials are projected to be 50% of the market. And for some odd reason, the millennials have zero problems paying higher amounts for housing. A lot of them are sitting on a lot of money. Remember a few years ago, we were talking about millennials still sitting at home with mom and dad? Well, guess what? They were saving that money. A lot of them were in high-tech industries, making lots of money, and they've been socking that money away. So they have money to pay over. And this is driving the market even higher. Another thing driving it, unemployment. Unemployment is at record lows, and people are quitting like crazy because they know they can find another job. How many businesses do you know who are looking for employees? Now, I remember a couple of years ago, everyone was complaining, talking about the $15 an hour wage in some states. Guess what? It didn't affect anything. Who knew? I actually thought it would affect things. Well, it didn't. Not only that, $15 doesn't even cut it in some states. The same states that were complaining 2 years ago, they got to pay their workers $17 an hour just to get someone to get in the door, which means people have more money to spend on housing. Right now, houses on average are selling more than asking price, and that should continue through the spring. Now, one thing to think about also is the bidding war effect. So what's the bidding war effect? Let's say you have a house that was $300,000. That's what you listed it for. Then someone comes along and offers you $330,000. Wow. The next person lists their house, they're smart, they list for $330,000 and they get $345,000. It's not as much as $300,000, $330,000, but it's still more. Now you get the person who goes, I can get even more than that. Then they list their house for $360,000 and they don't get it. Then it sits on the market for a few weeks. Then they back it down $345,000 and then miraculously it sells, which I see all the time. So that is affecting housing because now sellers are starting to have to adjust their prices, which is affecting the market, and some buyers who believe if they just wait that the prices are going to come down even more. So those people who are sitting on the sidelines are making things worse for themselves. I've already had situations throughout last year and this year where people not sitting on the fence, but they were going like, well, I want a house here and it needs to have this and this. And then the houses existed. Then you send in a house to them and then they'll go like, I really wanted to be more move-in ready or whatever excuse. Now I've had several people who've been 100% priced out of the market. Some of these people have lost tens of thousands of dollars in upward value. And it really makes me feel sad when that happens. And I have clients right now who are in the same boat and they're going to get priced out of the market. What does this all mean? Most buyers start at a lower price. They may have qualified, let's say, for $400,000 in a pre-approval. They're going like, you know what? I really want to try to keep it under $3 million. So they go out and they start looking for houses. And they're going, this won't do, this won't do, this won't do. And then they get into, okay, let's raise it. $325,000, $350,000, where they should have been in the first place may have been the $375,000 or $400,000. And they just keep trying. And then after a couple of months, they start realizing that the $400,000 house or $375,000 was what they really wanted. Do you know what happens now? They've been priced out of the market. So what does a slowdown look like? Well, a slowdown is going to look like instead of having 20 offers on a great house, you may have 5. No declines in prices. What you may have is where everyone is waiving appraisal or waiving inspections. You'll see that stop. That is going to be the slowdown for 2022. And by waiting, all it's doing is costing you more to purchase a home. Even if you don't take into account the rising interest rates, which will cost you more money, housing continues to go up. If you do not move fast, you're not going to end up in the house that you love. Even if you can't find the house that you love, you may have to find the house that you can get by with because the house that you love, you may have been already outpriced. Now, another thing that's affecting the market are renters. Renters who are going into the market now because we are at record prices on rentals. Not only have rentals gone up, there are now bidding wars around the country just to get an apartment. So let's say an apartment that they advertise $1,200, you go in and they're like, okay, yeah, that's the bidding war. We got 5 people who want this apartment. How much are you willing to pay? The same thing is happening for single family homes, and it's just across the board. The 3 markets here in the Las Vegas area, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and Henderson, are now in the top 10% of rental price increases. So people who are starting to see their bill and their rent is going to go up $300 and $400 next year, they're going like, why don't I just buy a house? Which puts more buyers into the pot who are competing against you. I don't sound like a used car salesman here with this one. You need to look at what your payments are ahead of what the house is. So if your payments are $1,600 a month and you can afford $1,600, you should look at a house, and then when you're sitting there trying to dicker over whether you're going to pay $1,000 or $2,000 more, that $1,000 or $2,000 more are pennies. Now, another thing that affected some people this year, which affected them negatively, hoping for a good thing, was the $25,000 program that Biden was talking about when he was running for election. At some point, it looked like something was going to happen, and with all the infighting in D.C., nobody's even thinking about it. So those people who are waiting for that to happen, that has absolutely crushed them, and housing prices have gone up more than that $25K. So the only thing that could have helped them with is maybe the down payment and some closing costs, but that was it. So some of them have gotten left high and dry, so don't you get left high and dry. And if you made it to this point in the video, all I have to do is ask you to hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe and watch a few more of my videos that pop up.